Welcome to Module 3, Collecting a Robust Language Sample. If you missed my name before, I'm Bob Owens, one of the originators of Sugar. Good sampling analysis begins with collecting a good sample. There are simple modifications we can easily make to the ways in which we talk with children that can enrich the responses a child gives. Let's look briefly at how to do this. As Stacy explained in Module 2, the typical school-based SLP collects 50 utterances or less. Stacy and I decided to work within this figure, so our goal became to take the situation as it is and try to enhance it, rather than harassing you to collect longer samples. If you've read some of the research, you know that the best length for a sample varies with the child's age and the SLP's purpose in sampling. In addition, the results are mixed when samples are compared. If we begin with 50 utterances as our target, we need to enhance those 50 utterances to get the best sample we can. Each utterance becomes important, and we don't want to have what we call empty utterances, consisting of one-word responses that leave us with little to analyze. A sugar analysis is morphosyntactic in nature, given that the vast majority of language impairment is of this type. Our task then becomes one of increasing each utterance's potential power. I'd be lying if I claimed that no one has ever recommended trying to stretch a child's language in a language sample. In fact, there's a long history of research articles demonstrating the effects of imposing various amounts of structure on children's language during sampling. The question comes down to one of desiring the most representative sample, which tends to occur in free samples, versus the most mature sample, which comes when we require children to perform certain tasks. Some researchers have gone so far as to propose using scripts in order to get more mature language. The tension between these sampling approaches has been with us from the beginning. Stacy and I decided to propose minimal modifications in the way in which we speak to children. With a few simple variations, both the child and the SLP can be relatively free to interact. We based our decision on what we know from research and on our desire to keep the interaction as open and free as possible. We began with what we know. Several researchers have demonstrated that narratives and expository tasks yield longer, more complex language from children. We wanted to encourage both types of talking without imposing narrative retelling or specific task explanations. These models don't work well with all children and also curtail your freedom as an SLP to follow a child's conversational lead. That said, we thought it's still possible to ask about how events occurred and how something is or was completed. We also know that yes-no questions yield yes-no answers. These utterances are of little value if we're interested in morphosyntactic analysis. Some authors have proposed simply omitting these utterances, but we felt that one-word utterances do represent how children interact, and deleting them altogether inflates values such as MLU. Similarly, product questions such as, "What's that? When did you go? Where did you go?" tend to yield one-word responses as well. And overriding all of this is our knowledge that relatively free samples with little structure tend to be more representative. Now what do we do? As mentioned, our research demonstrated that most SLPs collect 50 utterances or less, which can be accomplished with most children in less than 10 minutes. Let's make those 50 utterances count, and we can do this with a few simple modifications. Avoiding yes-no questions as much as possible. Avoiding product questions as much as possible. and using process questions or statements instead. Process questions and statements focus on the process or the manner in which something occurred or is accomplished. They're used to help children provide some narration or explanation of an event. This is accomplished with questions such as, how do or did you do something? And what happened next? And statements such as, tell me what happened or how you did X. Or, I wonder what happened or how you did X. We use process questions and statements in our everyday speech, but can forget to use them often when collecting a sample. It's the difference between, did you have fun at the party? And tell me what happened at the party. If it's not obvious, changing your style of talking doesn't just happen. You'll need to practice and role play with a colleague, a friend, or a family member. As adults, we change conversational turns extremely quickly. Try to step out of this mode when collecting a language sample. Slow down, think, and try to find a process question or statement that you can use. And interject some honest excitement and interest into your speech. Here are some examples. Oh, how did you make this? Tell me what happened at the zoo. Oh, that sounds like fun. What happened next? I wonder what you did at the party. Why did she eat all the candy? In the why did question, you're seeking an explanation. If you just ask why, you may get because as a reply. In addition, most children below age 4.5 don't yet know how to respond to why questions, so use them sparingly. Of course, we recognize that none of us is able to use a process question or statement in every conversational turn. But try to make this your default mode when you're collecting a language sample. As mentioned, we can help children build narratives by avoiding yes, no, and product questions. So what we do is we build a conversation with the child. First, do a little research before you sample the child's language. What's happening in the child's life right now or in the recent past? You can ask a teacher or a parent or even the child. Now you have some information upon which to build. For example, you might begin with, you said you saw your favorite movie at your friend's house. I don't know that one. Can you tell me the story, please? These stylistic changes, once learned, are very simple to use, and they're effective. In the Creaker et al. Article mentioned in Module 1, we demonstrated that we could significantly raise the child's MLU, significantly reduce the number of yes-no questions by the adult, and significantly reduce the number of one-word responses by the child. That results in a more robust 50 utterance sample. But of course, practice on your part before you begin is essential. This brings us to just a few comments about recording your sample. And we do mean record. Either audio or video is fine. But please, please do not transcribe the sample as you're conversing with the child. In all my years as an SLP, I've never heard a reputable professional recommend shortening the LSA process by transcribing as you and the child talk. How can you possibly uphold your end of the conversation while writing each child utterance? We're going to recommend a slightly different method of transcription in the next module anyway. So record the sample via audio or video, and we'll go from there. Equipment for recording is relatively inexpensive and should be readily available. Of course, there are methods for shortening the collection and transcription process, or for collecting a sample on the run. The ability of most smartphones to record means that you have a recording device at your fingertips whenever you need one. Just be careful that you don't violate HIPAA protections. Well, that wasn't too difficult, I hope. With a few simple modifications in our talking style, we'll be able to collect a robust sample of a child's language. Now we're ready to transcribe it in the next module. We'll make a few minimal changes here as well. This will quicken the transcription and analysis process. But no need to worry, there are no special codes, no lengthy methods, or apps that you'll need here either.